Save the Semantics, episode 343. It is September 25th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about center shit. Recording this on a Thursday afternoon / evening. Once again, gonna be talking more hoops. Just continuing on this little series that I'm doing right now. This time, want to get into the Western Conference, the clear better conference of the NBA, right? I think there are a lot of good teams in this conference, so I think it's going to be harder to sort of parse through what teams are going to be the ones to like stick out necessarily. But I think it's going to be, I think while it is like stressful being in the Western Conference as a Warriors fan, that doesn't mean that I can't appreciate good basketball happening. So I'll go through like the teams that I'm most interested in. I don't know if I'm going to go through all 15 teams necessarily. I was able to do that somehow with the East, but yeah, I think with the West, I'll kind of pick and choose which teams are the most intriguing in my opinion. I'm going to hold off talking about the Warriors in like a separate episode entirely, because I'll just kind of delve deeper into my own team there and then provide just like a full on episode there. But yeah, this time I'm just going to talk about the West and teams outside of the Warriors. Let's just start off like I think. So, it's just this continuing narrative regarding East-West and everything like that, and it's something that I continue to harp on. Ultimately, though, I mean, last year's finals, especially, was a showcase in a way that it can be. You can find a situation in which you could find a comparative opponent, especially in the case of Indiana and Oklahoma City, right? While Indiana's regular season record does not convey that they could be like a finalist, the play in the playoffs kind of upended that, right? Indiana in itself is kind of a special case. Like the run they went on was one of a kind in NBA history, I think. I think we'll be looking back on their run in 24-25 as one of like the craziest runs, right? In recent history, you could probably pinpoint to the Miami Heat, but in comparison, I would say the Pacers, they could have made it all the way through. I think Game 7, I don't want to keep revisiting because it sucks, but that could have gone either way, really, with how Halliburton was playing. That really could have gone either way, and if they were able to complete that, I think we would have looked at it as one of the craziest runs in NBA history. And I think, honestly, going into this season, it would have like flipped a lot of conversations regarding how to team build or how to build a championship level contender or those kinds of things. You know what I mean? So I think that's something to really consider in this conversation, because it is easy to, I don't know, it's easy to kind of like fall into the idea that the East is worse, much worse than the West. But actually it might not be the case. Maybe like there are like, matchups that actually work out pretty well. So that's just something that I've been thinking about. But again, we'll get into, more of that as we continue into the season. And I'll talk about, let's get into some of the Western teams that I find the most interesting. All right, let's start off with the top of the Western Conference, the defending champs. in the Oklahoma City Thunder. As I said, I think if the Thunder did not win the championship, I think there would be a lot of added pressure to that team. And I think the stakes, especially for this season, would be much higher for them. But now that they have achieved their first championship, I think there's going to be an ease to everything else. Of course, there's going to be expectations to defend their title and everything like that. That was the same case for all of the other preceding teams, right? And defending their championship and everything like that. But I do think that now that they have one under their belt, there's going to be a lot less. I mean, there's less expectations, right? So they'll still be a really good team, obviously. I think they'll still be probably the best team in the league. Just the fact that they've kept everybody from the championship roster and everything. So in terms of like expectation, right, it's going to be easy to be like, yeah, they're going to win it again. I don't think that's going to be the case. Trending how things have been trending over the course of the last 5, 6, 7 years, a new champion every single year, right? What's the term? Why can't I think of the term? You know what the term is, right? Not amicable. The fact that just like there's more levity, not levity. It's a level playing field. You know what it is. I can't think of the word. I'm gonna kick myself for not thinking of the word. But it'll come to me like later maybe. But you know what I mean. The fact that there's been a new champion every single season for the past almost half decade plus. I think this trend will continue. So they'll be good. I don't think they're going to win this year though. I don't know what else to really add to their, what else I can really add aside from the fact that it's just like, yeah, it's just going to be like another year. But I do think like there is like a fatigue factor there as well. Nowadays, I mean, you could pretty much point to any championship team. There is some level of injury luck, right? I think that helps out quite a bit. And, you could look at the case of like Tatum and stuff, where just the amount of minutes that you log on to your body year after year after year of long, deep playoff runs, I think those things can have a toll on your body. So while, the Thunder, this is their first year going all the way to the finals, right? All 4 rounds. I think that will have maybe an effect. I think that there is like an endurance factor to take into account. They did not struggle. They did not have any issues really. Well, you could point to like Chet Holmgren missing time, and I think even like Isaiah Hartenstein missing some time. So there are instances of them not getting, not having like a fully healthy squad. But when it came to when it mattered in the playoffs, they were healthy at the right time. So, yeah, and then there's been like reports about J-Dub having some issues with his hands and playing through injury and that kind of stuff. Like those things are gonna linger. So I think obviously you don't want teams to be injured, but like it's just kind of a fact. It's just a nature of this sport in particular. Unfortunately, one of the biggest issues I would say is just injury luck and everything like that. But that is going to be a factor, I think. I think depending on how healthy their team is, which you never know. You just never know how that's going to go. But I do predict that they might have some issues because of how much their body has have told. You know what I mean? So we'll see. I don't think they're going to be in the finals this year. They're going to be... I think they'll make it to the Western Conference Finals, but they're not going to be in the finals because I have an idea who's going to win. I'll get into that into in a little bit. But let's talk about some other teams before we get to who I think is going to win the championship this year. Other teams that I find kind of interesting. But I don't think that they're going to really win anything. Trailblazers. I think they're going to be one of the teams that make a jump this year. Right. Last year, I was like, maybe Detroit. Turned out I was right. I feel like I've been pretty good on predictions and stuff. Maybe I'm getting better at this. But I think that the Blazers are going to make a bit of a jump this year. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be, they're not going to be like a higher seed because there are many other better teams than them. But I do think like an extra year, they added Drew Holiday. Their younger players are developing and they have like an identity. I think getting rid of like DeAndre Ayton and Anthony Simons, I think kind of clears up a bit of glut so that the players that they actually want to play in a Scoot Henderson and a Shaedon Sharpe, I think that's going to clear the way for them to be able to perform. But I do think, and I think, Dame's not going to play this year, but I think having his presence will help in some ways and allowing the younger guards to develop and stuff like that. Like having like an older leader in some ways, I think would be beneficial in a lot of instances. So I actually think that they'll make a bit of a leap. Like they had moments last year where they were going, they were winning like pretty handedly in some instances. And, but yeah, I think the extra year, they have some pretty interesting players in like a Denny Advia and a Toumani Camara, especially Camara. I love that guy. I would love to have him on my team. But yeah, I think that the Blazers in particular are going to be the one team that I think are going to make a leap this year from a close to play-in position to maybe a lower seed playoff position. It's going to be tough for sure because of the conference and everything like that. But I do think that there is a possibility for them to do that. So that's my kind of prediction for them. Okay, speaking of teams that might make a jump, I still have some questions about that. The Spurs, right? Everybody had this, not everybody, but I think a larger part of like media had this perception that the Spurs were going to make a pretty significant jump last year. I thought that jump was way too much. Like people were predicting that they were going to make like a 20-game leap from the previous season when Wembanyama was a rookie. I think this year they'll continue to grow, but I also don't know because like they have Fox. I think Chris Paul went to the Clippers, right? At 40. And then they still have Harrison Barnes. So they do have some veteran presence, which I think will help. But I do feel that they're still figuring it out, right? Wembanyama missing a good chunk of last season was unfortunate. Hopefully like the whole blood clot issue is kind of like figured out by now. But I mean, it seems, based on just his activities of what he's been doing over the course of the summer, going to like a monastery and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if that has how much of an effect that has on like the physical body itself, but it seems like he's been active and that sort of thing. So I'm sure a lot of those things have helped out in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I would love to continue to just be, watching Wemby play. Anytime I'm able to get a chance, like it's always something, some crazy stuff. Like it never ceases to amaze me what he can do. But yeah, we'll see. Like in terms of the whole team itself, whether they'll be able to, develop. Like their younger players and Stephon Castle and who else? They got Dylan Harper. like they still have a lot of young players too, and that, it's sometimes hard to kind of envision a younger team, especially having a level of success to get to the postseason. Maybe I think the Thunder are kind of maybe the exception to that rule. Like they have a very young team, but they also have like experienced players, which helped them win the championship, and in Alex Caruso, Hartenstein, and that kind of thing. So they still need to have like the right pieces, and the pieces they have need to develop. So I think they'll be maybe in play-in conversation. I feel is like a decent prediction, pretty safe prediction probably. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking they're going to be. Always excited to see Wemby play, but in terms of like the Spurs' success, considering the glut that they're in, yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I think they'll be a good team like in the future, just considering how well they've been built and their lottery luck and everything like that. They'll be good. Like they'll be a good team like a few years down the line, I think. Next team. Next team is the I don't know why I thought I was going to go somewhere different, like an actual team that will probably be good. But I'm going to go with the Pelicans. I'm jumping all over the place. I'm not going in any order of like best to worst. I'm just jumping all over the place here with the West. So there's been a lot of talk after their media day. There's been like new pictures that have come out for Zion, and the fact that he looks a lot healthier, and there's been quotes and all that kind of stuff. I think if you're a New Orleans fan, it's always like, it's always good to be like hopeful in the case of Zion, especially, right? But I also think there is like a piece of it too where it's like, it's the hope that kills you. You know what I mean? It's the hope that kills you too. Because it's been the same kind of thing every year for them ever since he's been on the team, where there's just been like, there's been flashes. I think 2 years before was kind of like the year where like, oh crap, they're actually going to do it. And then Zion gets injured right before they get to the playoffs. Right. So it's the same story every season. And considering their injury luck last year, which was absolutely horrible, I would say like out of any team, they were like the most hampered. They are like the cursed franchise, right? New Orleans is just like, that's just kind of the thing, unfortunately. So I don't know what's in the water. I don't know what's going on down there, but it just isn't working. You know what I mean? It's like, maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year. It feels more closer that there's going to be just like a major overhaul. I'm just not feeling very optimistic for them, unfortunately. I've had moments where I'm like, this team is actually good. 2 years ago I was talking about them. I was like looking at their roster. They had a really good starting lineup, and it was just like Zion kind of pulls it all together, and then he goes down. So it's just kind of like a repeat thing, you know what I mean? Now there's like a few different pieces. They got Jordan Poole. They drafted some players which is kind of like, I don't know if that's really a good draft pick. The whole Derek Queen, trading like an unprotected first pick and all that kind of stuff has been talked about to death. Yeah, it's kind of like it sounds just messy. But if Zion somehow, in some way, shape, or form, is actually able to perform and play games and get this team to like a decent position, like he's good enough to be able to do that. It is just all about his availability, right? They have a not a great roster construction. They still have Trey Murphy and they still have Herb Jones, but the rest of the surrounding pieces is kind of a mess, right? So is Zion and his health, is he going to be able to drag this team out of the mud finally? I don't think so. I think they're not going to be the worst team in the conference. I think that's going to be Utah. But I don't think they're going to be a good team. They'll be like 30 wins max, I think. Like 30 plus wins or low, like high 20s is kind of what I expect them to be. I just don't think they have a well-constructed roster. Like, who's on the bench? I guess they still have Jose Alvarado. And I don't know. It's just like a messy. They have Kevon Looney. Shout out Looney. But outside of that, I don't know. It's just like a weird thing. I think the Pelicans are probably, just considering their new GM and Joe Dumars, I don't know what he thinks he's doing. I think the idea is that they're going to try to hold on to Zion. I just don't. Why would you want to let go of like a friend? Like, from their perspective, why would you want to let go of like a perennial, first pick? Regardless of his like injury history or whatever, it's hard to like let that go. So I don't know. I want New Orleans to have like a little bit, because they've just gone through so much, but also realistically speaking, I just don't think they're going to be a good team. And I hope for their sake they're not as bad, so that their draft pick doesn't convey to Atlanta. So, yeah, that's that. The team that I was thinking about before getting into the Pelicans was the Timberwolves. Timberwolves have had 2 straight Western Conference Finals runs, which I think is pretty impressive. Both times they've come up short because they just faced off against. In the case of like this past season, like they came up against the Thunder, which just was not a good matchup for them, right? So how do they get over the hump? I think they're like they're like the team, because of 2 conference finals runs where they have the tools, they have the players, and it seems like they have the personnel, the continuity, and all that. I think the fact that they were able to get back to the conference finals after the Cat trade and everything that went down, I think is like a testament to just how well, just like the coaching and the culture that they've developed, right? So I think they'll still be a good team. They'll be a good team. Not still. They'll be a good team. Just thinking about, the placement of them in this Western Conference, I think it's easy to go like Thunder, Nuggets. I'll get into the Nuggets after this, Nuggets, and then maybe the Timberwolves. Like, Houston now with the whole VanVleet thing is kind of a question mark. They'll still be a good team. They'll still be like a playoff team and everything like that. But they can still, like, the Wolves are gonna just, I think they can be up there. Because they have that continuity and they don't need to. The big trade went down, and they were able to adjust and succeed in spite of that. So I think they'll be good. What is Ant's year going to look like? He's going to have to take on like additional role of like playmaking and that kind of thing. Like, we know like how good of a player he is. It's just going to come down to the fact if he can become more of like a Luka type of player where he's facilitating and, creating shots for other players. Because I think if you're just watching him from a surface perspective, it seems like he's kind of, like if you're just like watching, you're just doing like a little eye test of sorts, he's not doing that. He's not a point guard, right? He's not necessarily a playmaker. But he has developed that skill. And that is something that I think he can carry over into this next year and get better at and continue to get better at. So that's going to be the big thing. Is he going to just like continue to morph himself into becoming one of the best players in the league? Or maybe is he going to maintain some of the things and maybe some of the issues that he's had over the past couple of years where, he's not taking advantage of just being the best player. Like, I remember during, like, the Warriors series, I was like, this dude should be taking over, but he's not. Like, he's just kind of, like, sitting on his laurels a little bit. Like, they should have, they won fairly handedly after Steph went down, but honestly, they probably could have kicked our ass even more. It just felt like, Ant was like, he wasn't going like 100%, honestly. Maybe it was like an injury, I have no idea. But I do think there is like maybe a bit of an effort thing for him as well. So it just sort of maybe coincides with a little bit of that, where he needs to put more effort on, creating shots for other teammates, or maybe there's like a, defensive lapse in judgment or whatever. There are a lot of factors that I think you can account for with Ant and his success. But yeah, I think it's going to all hinge on him, right? And his ability to ascend and become the best player, one of the best players in the league. But I don't think they're going to win this year. But they'll still be a good team. There'll be another good team in the mix. Let's talk about Denver. I think they're going to win this year. I think Denver's going to win this year. Everything they did in the offseason just made sense. They added Cam Johnson, which is the big acquisition. They got Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas. Who else did they get? I forgot who else they got. But just like solid role players. And I think they're gonna be one of the best teams. I think especially replacing Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr., he was just, pretty in and out, and he was injured during the course of like the playoffs last year. I think it's gonna be huge. I think they're gonna be a really good team, and then Jokic, right? If you have the best player and then you surround him with the right pieces. They got Bruce Brown back, so yeah, they're gonna be good. I think they're gonna be good. They're gonna win this year. I feel like it just feels like they've added the right pieces. Because like if you look at 22 when they won, they had the right support for Jokic. I think it was like, up until then, you had Jamal Murray being injured and Michael Porter also being injured. In the prior year of 20. They won in 23. Warriors won in 22. I remember when the Warriors faced off against them in the first round, it was like so clear that Jokic had no help whatsoever. And then in the following season, when everybody was healthy, everybody was available, they had the right support, and it worked very well together, right? So now, assuming everybody's healthy and everything, they got like one of the best rosters in the league, if not the best roster in the league. And I think that's going to play a factor. Sure, maybe like defensively, they still might not be the best team, but 23, they were not the best defensive team, and they still won. And you saw, like, they pushed the Thunder to 7. So now the fact that they got all of these additional pieces, and, there was the whole locker room issue and the whole, like, GM with Michael Malone versus Booth, the GM, Calvin Booth. That whole situation is gone now. That was probably that probably had a huge effect on them in the locker room and just on the floor and everything. Now that's kind of cleared out of the way. You got, was it David Aldridge? What's the coach's name? I forgot the coach's name. But, the newer guy who came in last year as interim, I think having just like another year is going to help for him. Everything for me points to them winning this year, in my opinion. I think that they'll find a way. I think it's going to be them. Pretty easy prediction. I think it's going to be them and the Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, and then the Nuggets are going to win whoever comes out of the East, I believe. So that's my prediction. I don't know. It feels kind of safe in a way too. I mean, last year my prediction was pretty safe. I was like Thunder. They were the number one seed last year. One more additional year. They added a bunch of great players in Caruso and Hartenstein. It felt kind of like a no-brainer. This kind of is also the same situation here. It feels almost like a no-brainer to pick them as like one of the champions this year. And yeah, I mean it's Jokic, right? And I feel pretty good about that prediction. Who knows? Maybe that, Thunder are still going to be incredible, but I think it's going to be Thunder Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals this year. I feel like I kind of like blew my load too early. No, I don't want to make that sound weird. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. Like, no, that's exactly what I mean. I was gonna like build up to the fact, like, the Nuggets, but no, I mean, I don't know. It's just like an easy pick for me, I think. Let's round out the rest of the conference that I feel is like interesting, because there are teams that's like, okay, Lakers, who else? Memphis. There are like teams that are kind of there, but it's like I think they'll be good. I just don't think they're gonna, they're not gonna be. I don't think they're gonna win. I'm also just not super interested in either of those teams, to be honest. And then you get into like Warriors and the Clippers. Clippers, I think, Clippers are like, because the whole scandal is still ongoing. That might just kind of have like, I don't know. It's so easy to write off the Clippers year after year, especially after the first round exit, when everybody just kind of shit the bed, right? It's so easy to do that. And I feel like that's like gonna just, why would I ever bet on the Clippers? You know what I mean? It's like they added Beal, they added Chris Paul, they added Brook Lopez, old ass team, just like the Warriors. They'll be good. They'll be a good team. But yeah, they're not gonna win anything. They'll be a good team. That's just it. They're gonna be a good team. And then they're gonna disappoint their fans, as they do every single year. Like clockwork. So that's my prediction. I don't know what else to add. It doesn't matter. It does not matter who they add to their team. Honestly, I really don't think. I just think there is just like this, I don't know, it's just like a thing. It's just like a Clippers thing. They're just not going to do it. And yeah, that's kind of where things are with them. Other teams in the West, Mavericks, I don't know what they're going to look like. They got Cooper Flag. Kyrie is out. They still have Anthony Davis. Just like a weird team. I think they'll be a really good defensive team, but outside of that, I don't know. Who else is there? Utah. I mean, they're going to be bad. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. So really not much there. Who else am I missing? I got to do the thing again. I got to look at the list. I got to look at all the teams again. Give me a second. Okay, so looking at all of the teams, I'm actually not that interested in a lot of them. As I said before, I'm just like, okay, they'll be good, but I just don't really have any interest in them. Yeah, I already mentioned Memphis and LA. I did not mention Phoenix. Phoenix is not going to be good. They're stuck in this weird position because Devin Booker just signed like a huge contract. Sounds like he's going to be like a lifer type of thing, taking the Dame route. You know what I mean? I mean, it worked out for Dame, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, they have, it's like what, Devin Booker, Jalen Green in the starting lineup, Dylan Brooks, Kamal Malawak. Who else? No. Yeah, I mean, that's just, yeah, I don't know. It's sort of it feels like, now that they don't have KD and Beal, it's like, okay, this is going to be absolutely Booker's team. But, I mean, who else do they have, really? I just don't. Yeah. They're going to be a team. That's for sure. Honestly, it's so funny. Looking at the West and then looking at the East again. doing this whole thing again. Is it really that much of a difference? Because, like, on the top of my head, here are, like, the good teams in the West. Like, the actual, like, yeah, for sure they're going to be good. The Thunder, Denver, Minnesota, the Clippers, probably can put LA, Memphis, I guess. Just, you know, like, they have a good team. Warriors. Okay, so I guess there's, like, a good handful of pretty good teams. So never mind. But amongst all of them, yeah, I really only feel confident about, like, 3 of them. Maybe 2 or 3 of them in terms of, like, making it to, like, the conference finals. And then in the East, it's, like, Cavs, Knicks, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's very easy to do the comparison thing, which I think I will continue to do, obviously, because it's an easy talking point for me. But I actually think it's not as crazy as it might be. The West is wild, absolutely. But in terms of, you know, separating the cream from the crop, like, I think it's pretty. I can tell kind of what that looks like. Maybe there's, like, some intriguing teams with, like, the Blazers and the Spurs making a leap, but outside of that, it's like, yeah, there's some good teams, but they're just not interesting to me, in particular. So yeah, that's it's shorter. It's weird for the West to be a shorter preview, but I just think it's more fun to look at the East because of just how it's just so unpredictable what that's going to look like. In terms of, like, the standings or whatever. I actually think that the West has a bit more, maybe, like, the second half of the playoff picture is going to be chaos as it was last year. But in terms of the top, it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of can see what that looks like. So, I don't know. There are more, like, interesting teams in the East, in my opinion, because of just, like, I don't even know what that's going to look like. As I talked about with, like, Philly and the Bucks and Toronto, like, it's just, like, I don't know what those teams are going to look like. In the West, it feels a little bit more like, yeah, these are good teams. So it's, like, a little less interesting, in my opinion. I don't know if that makes any sense. So, yeah, that's the West. A bit shorter, but I just don't have as much to say. Mainly because I think I'm saving to talk about the Warriors at a later point. I don't know when that's going to be. Again, I'm just waiting for the whole situation to clear. And that's it. Like, there's just... can we move on, please? You know? And then we can actually get a sense of what the finalized roster is going to be. And then I can fully talk about the Warriors. And that'll be fun. But until then, I'll hold off on that. So yeah, that's going to do it for my little Western Conference preview. Again, as like a quick wrap up, I think the Nuggets are going to win the West, and I think they're going to win the championship this year. And who knows? There might be some surprises. Some other surprise teams that come up, but we'll see how that goes. And the preseason starts next week, which is exciting. Along with, like, training camp, I think has already started for some teams as well. So that's pretty cool. We're already hearing some news and stuff like that. As I mentioned, you know, the Pelicans with the whole Zion thing, that was a whole story, because of course it was. And then we'll see, you know, what else kind of comes out of the whole the preseason and all that. So yeah, not far from basketball. Would love to actually talk about some NBA hoops. I think the first game is going to be, like, in Abu Dhabi with the Sixers and the Knicks, I think. So that's going to be, like, early in the morning, so I'm not going to watch that. But I will maybe catch some highlights. I don't know. We'll see. It's coming. It's coming up. Anyways, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for listening, as always. This has been Save the Semantics. Signing off.